All right, all right. Welcome back, everybody. It is now week 4 of this new 2024 college football season. We missed the last 2 weeks. We had some stuff going on between the three of us, but hey, we are back now. We're gonna keep it rolling. So, hey, this yeah, Saturday, well, this past weekend because we had games on Friday also. Um, to me. It wasn't too nothing too huge going on. Some eye raisers, some eyebrow raisers, definitely. But I think we got to start off with the biggest game of the weekend. Probably has been talked about for a couple of weeks now. Was Oklahoma's introduction to the SEC going against Tennessee. Josh Heupel coming back home. Well, not back home, but back to Oklahoma. Um, as the head coach this time. And for the most part, you look at the score, and it came out to be what was it, 10-point win for Tennessee. But it didn't feel that close. It felt like from the jump of that football game, like, hey, all rails were off. It's just like they just outclassed, outmatched, outcoached. Oklahoma just not did not seem like they were ready for the moment. And I was at the Carolina game, so I didn't catch it, but y'all were texting me while I was there, and y'all were saying that I got a notification that Oklahoma ended up benching their quarterback. But when I got the notification, it seemed like it was pretty like early in the game. It wasn't even like it was like into the fourth quarter or something like that. Like the game was totally lost. For either one of y'all who was watching the game, hey, what did it feel like? Kind of how the stats played out for the most part.
Yes and no. I think on my turn, when I look at this game, I really felt like it was a blowout. I felt like Tennessee put up 43 on them boys, and it was just so ugly that nobody really wanted to watch it. But really, to me, the storyline was a lot of Tennessee really trying to fill themselves out early in this game. Nico being a young quarterback who is elite as he is, filling himself out early in this game, having a couple early turnovers where you got to keep the ball close to you, even though you are in the throwing motion on certain fumbles that he had. But to me, I think the bigger story is Oklahoma. Tennessee, yes, we knew that you had a young quarterback who's on the road in his first big game. We knew that y'all was not going to be totally efficient. I knew that going into it. But for Oklahoma, I always heard that y'all was ready for this moment. The defense is going to be this top-notch defense. The offense is going to be led by this young quarterback who's, this dual threat guy who's can't be stopped. And they look like they wouldn't even know what their game plan was. Just to really be honest, I'm not really trying to make it seem dramatic. I really want to be serious. Like there were certain plays that were happening that they O line could not even communicate at all, even to block the man right in front of you. The quarterback really didn't have time to really understand what he was dealing with when it comes to his progressions, and everything just fell apart so fast for them with turnovers, which I think ultimately led to the benching. Which I don't agree with the benching at all. To me, I understand your quarterback is struggling. I understand that, but he's a young guy. Let him get through this moment. Because if there's anybody on that team that's going to turn it around, it would have been Jackson Arnold. So I think it's a little bit of a weird situation, but Oklahoma, to me, y'all are nowhere near ready for SEC football because Tennessee was really a team that you could have beat Saturday. You really could have beat them if y'all had y'all P's and Q's in order, if y'all was efficient, but it was nowhere near. So I think, Van, what you saw on your phone was really just tell of it. It's kind of like what is going on. It's not like in a situation where they gotta bench him. It's kind of like why bench him? Like what's going on really? So Sean, you can tell me what you feel about it. It was weird to me, but Oklahoma didn't show me a lot in that game, not at all.
No, they didn't, but I'm gonna try my best to give Oklahoma a few flowers here. I was relatively impressed with their defensive scheme.
Right.
Okay. I think they actually came into the game. They had enough film on Tennessee, just enough film to put a game plan together that would to keep the game close. They got some players on the defensive side of the ball. Their head coach is a defensive guy, so I get it. That they should be good defensively. On the offensive side of the ball, I was just as perplexed as anyone else. When they showed the stat, not the stat, but when they showed on the screen that the quarterback, Jackson Arnold, was the third best recruit coming out of his class, I'm trying to figure out. I don't see that. I didn't see that. It's almost like he wouldn't let go of the ball. He also wouldn't run. They kept talking about how he was a dual threat. I never really saw him do anything with his legs. I think the moment was too big for him. I don't
Right.
know where he played high school. Um, I'm not knocking his high school career or anything like that, but what I think, if I had to guess, he probably played at a smaller school where the talent or where the teams that he was playing, he was the best athlete on the field. Right. It wasn't like a 7A school, a big, a big high school with, well, with a lot of kids getting recruited. You know, I don't see it. I do disagree with the benching, which you Drew. I do disagree with it because how else are you going to let this man grow unless you keep him in this game and use this game as a springboard for the future for him? I honestly didn't see much in the backup either. You know what I'm saying? How are you Oklahoma and you don't have a quarterback? I just don't get. It could be because they got a defensive coach. I don't know, but you're right. Oklahoma is not ready. Now to Tennessee. I love Nico. He made some throws, man. The one throw he made on that post route, um, I thought that was a Tom Brady throw. You know what I'm saying? He made a few mistakes here and there, but he's young. I get all that. Tennessee is going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem. Um, the next 2 years, Tennessee, they're going to be very problematic with Nico at the helm. Josh Heupel knows exactly what he wants to do, exactly what he wants to do in the game. He calls plays extremely aggressive. If he didn't call plays as aggressively as he's calling plays, he wouldn't have beat Bama in Tennessee that year. Josh Heupel is going to take the top off, and he's going to test you. And that's what everybody has to really worry about when you play Tennessee. They're going to have a puncher's chance to win every game that they play. Every game that they play. And I'm talking about now with Nico being so young. It's only going to become more problematic in the future. The SEC should be put on notice right now. Tennessee is coming. Not Colorado, but Tennessee is coming. Georgia may end up, I text y'all this, Kirby Smart may not be able to realize his full potential as a head coach in regards to winning national championships because Tennessee could very well be in his way, just like Bama was in his way with when Saban was there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm digging Tennessee and what they got going on. Oklahoma, you got a long way to go. I'm putting Oklahoma middle of the pack in the SEC by the end of this year. Middle of the pack. But man, Tennessee, man, y'all got y'all flowers, man. And it did. It felt like a 40-14 game. 25-15. That's not what it was. It was a 40-14 game.
Yeah, and those 12 points in the fourth quarter really kind of fluffed things together because I thought they really should end that game with just 3 points. Now, give the backup credit. He did score points, a touchdown. And that does matter. But I think when you think of Oklahoma, they really got to get back to the drawing board. I think this team would have been SEC ready 10 years ago. Strong defense, game managing quarterback, game managing offense. That's not who we are today in the SEC. You got guys like Nico, to me, who is a elite quarterback. I'm not gonna play around with telling people that he's good anymore. He's elite quarterback, and he's extremely young, which are two things that are dangerous when it comes to people like him. Because what you really got to think about what happened in that game was you really got to say we don't want him to get off filter. We want him to stay within the offensive game plan. But I think Apple was really trying to reel him back. Like, we got some things lurking for you, but we're really not gonna let you take these yet because we want you to understand how to progress through the offense. Those are the things that I think we really saw from Nico yesterday. But when he was ready to let that ball go, man, it's one of the prettiest footballs you're gonna see in college football right now. It's one of the prettiest balls in the air, and he's throwing it on the money almost every single time. He has a couple misplays where he makes a couple mistakes. I think those are teachable, learnable moments. But from Tennessee, what we saw from him yesterday, last night, it's football that's really can work in today's game. It's really not even trying to say anything too dramatic about the team. It's overall football that can work. I think the main thing we really got to ask ourselves about Oklahoma was, is it really Tennessee's defense, or was it Tennessee's defense, or was it just the offensive woes that just never got going? Because Sean, the quarterback they got is supposed to be that guy.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the guy.
Supposed to be the guy.
Yeah.
So we really can't even say that they don't got a quarterback because they're supposed to have the guy.
And I don't know if it's being young, but the thing with it, I don't mean to cut you off, Drew, but I just want to say the thing with Oklahoma is, your schedule is only about to get like a lot tougher
Yeah.
down this stretch. This is the easy part of your schedule. You still gotta, and I'm not dismissing any team on the rest of their schedule, but going to Auburn, Auburn's a team that can catch fire at any time, any moment. We've already seen that a couple times this season. You still got to deal with Texas for the Red River rivalry. You still got South Carolina. You still got to go to Ole Miss. You got to go to Missouri, and you got Bama and LSU on the schedule. What are you going to do with what just happened on Saturday going forward? Because it is a blaring alarm right now that's getting ready to start going off if this thing keeps sliding down before you get to the back half of this season.
Go ahead, Sean. Muted.
Yeah, and you were at home too. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Night game at home in Norman. To get well, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna call it a blowout. It was a blowout. Oklahoma was never gonna win that football game. Um, you know, Venables, do we start talking about is he the guy there? I mean, I'm not saying Brent Venables not a good coach, but I think he just, defensive coaches need to do a really good job of hiring offensive coaches that really know what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? I think Oklahoma will and can have a defense that can hold up in the SEC if Brent Venables continues to be the coach there, or as he's the coach there. But he's just got to make sure that his offensive pieces are there. Otherwise, they're going to remain in the middle of the pack in the SEC moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put too much on this game just because it was their first big SEC game ever. So we do got to give them a break in certain aspects. And I think this game in this moment for Oklahoma is very eye-opening. But we can't panic. We can't panic because I think the season is salvageable, but we got to temper expectations of what an SEC season looks like. 8 wins in the SEC is considered a good season. It's considered a good season. We look for a couple games. I think you can get through Auburn. I think that's possible. Don't let Auburn trip you up. They're not that good of a team. We saw that. They're not that good of a team. Now, when you go to Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, you got to have your ducks in a row. You got to know exactly your identity and how you're going to face those teams because I think they could beat South Carolina. And I love supporting South Carolina the way I support them, which is not but much support at all. But I think they can. I think South Carolina can beat these boys because if you don't have an offensive line that can stop these young boys that are going to come at that quarterback all game long, it's a position where you're not going to come out there winning, or it's going to be a tight game where Carolina can steal it on the road. So there's so many ways this season can still fall into position, but it also can be a disaster first year in the SEC type situation where we're not going to get those big time recruits. We're not going to get the stuff that we've been through. I think Venables is the coach for this team because he is a defensive minded coach. I think what we have to do is say that middle of the pack first year in the SEC is a great year. I think that is an expectation that we have to label for this team. And let's say if this coach can lead us anywhere better than this, then he is our guy. But it's based on what we saw yesterday or last night, it really was not a good showing overall. We're going to see in the next couple weeks, the next few months, they're going to be on our topic teams for the next couple times in this podcast. So we're going to have a lot of eyes on Oklahoma, a lot of eyes on Oklahoma.
And y'all, and real quick, y'all, Nico is 6'6".
Yeah.
All right. He's 6'6". So I saw it today watching an NFL game. It might have been, it was Jalen Hurts or Derek Carr, one or two. But, you got these big offensive linemen that take their hand and bat the ball down. Nico's not going to have that problem. You know what I'm saying? There are certain aspects of Nico's game that are not only going to translate to the next level, but they're going to hella translate to the next level. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Man, this guy, I'm just excited to continue to watch him. Not just in college, man, but this guy's got a strong career lined up in the league. Go
I'm
moving
telling you, I'm
forward.
going to keep making this comparison just because the way he can move too, Sean. He's not just some quarterback that's going to sit back there and be a pocket statue. He can move. Him and Trevor Lawrence. Man, I see so much resemblance in them two games. I see so much resemblance because Nico can actually move too. Early in that game, he didn't have a couple of reads. He was making a couple people move, getting them shaking bacon, having him hit the turf. So I'm like, all right, we got a quarterback who we really gotta watch. And I think Hypo knows that as well. And I think he's really trying to keep him on a leash early in the season. He's like you said earlier, he's gonna take his shots. He's gonna take them. And we see Nico be pure accurate with the shots that he takes. But it's gonna be a situation where there's gonna be certain moments where they're gonna take shot after shot after shot, and this quarterback's gonna put the ball on the money as long as he's not pressured, which that was the biggest point from yesterday's game. The only time Oklahoma even seemed compatible in that game was when they were getting pressure on him. Had a couple fumbles, had a couple turnovers, make him look young. But man, if he fixes those things, Sean, it's scary. He is so prototype quarterback. If he puts on a little bit of muscle over the next couple of years, you got a shoe in. I don't think him and Raiola are the same draft. That was my question. Which one of you had to pick one of those two quarterbacks?
They're a
I would
year
say
off from each other, so they could. There's only 1 year difference between the two of
right,
them.
man.
So, man, oh, that's
Quarterback play is so
all
such a
right.
to watch, but Nico
Yeah.
top notch.
Here's the thing between the two of those, though. Nico's gonna be more seasoned just because of the league he's playing in. And no offense to what's going over there with Nebraska and all the opponents that they're playing in, but I mean it's different football down here. I think both of y'all know that. This SEC ball, and the thing is, we had Raiola was supposed to he was committed to Georgia. He was supposed to be at Georgia. So imagine that. Imagine if he stayed at Georgia and you would have got these games, them going up against each other, potentially in not only the SEC, but regular season, but maybe in the SEC championship game, the way the format is now for the SEC. And then on then you got the extended playoffs. So you can still get that matchup again in there. I'm telling you, it's a lot of what ifs, but those are two guys right now that
There's a lot I can say about that decommitment and that switch as well too. But I think it was for the best. I do think it was for the best. The what if questions about who Georgia could be with a top tier quarterback. I'm not saying Carson Baker's not top tier, but I'm talking about that just game changer college quarterback.
he's a game manager.
Just a total game changer quarterback. Georgia has really never had that person. They've had people that could do exactly what was the script said. But I think George is too much of a dog is a nice way to say it for Raiola. He looks like he wants to be in a situation where things are flowing good. He's that guy who just keep things rolling. And he's gonna show out though, but he's showing out with less talent. That's my point, man. That's why I think it can almost be compatible because he's showing out, he's showing
Yeah,
poise, he's showing accuracy, he's showing everything you want from a quarterback with less talent. Now, Matt
yeah,
Rule can recruit, but he's not doing SEC top tier recruit.
yeah,
Tennessee's gonna have a way better roster through their whole career than Nebraska, which can
yeah.
kind of be a tipping point and a talking point. It's man, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. I wanted Nebraska to win that game Friday night too. I wanted them to be 8-0 going to face Ohio State. That would have been something that would have been really, really talking point.
That would I think it still could turn out to be a very much anticipated game,
No,
but
I
I
think,
just
I
think
think it will be. I think it really will be.
when we pivot off of Tennessee and we start talking about Nebraska, I think you got to start looking at the coaching staffs, man. The
Yeah.
coach you got Josh Heupel that's been at Tennessee for a minute now. He's got his system implemented, his pieces in place, and for Tennessee's sake, this is what the team was when they had Hendon Hooker. You got every single player style of player and quarterback to run what you want to do. He doesn't need there's no weaknesses in the game where he's like, I can't do this because I'm still missing this type of player. He's
Right.
got on top to bottom, the entire roster, a team that does what he wants to do to perfection. And it's only gonna get better. It's just gonna gel because a lot of these guys are still young. Now, what thing that Tennessee is carrying along with them this year that Josh Heupel's never really been known for is defensive teams. And you can say going back a couple of years, you have flashes of, hey, they have defensive performances, but he's always been that, all right, we got to fire off a whole bunch of games. We got to get a whole bunch of points in these games to outscore our opponents. But now it's looking like they held Oklahoma they were under 100 yards total offense going into the fourth quarter. Like those type of games really this team just it feels different. It feels like you're watching it cook, right? And you're just waiting for, the popcorn to start going. This is where you got the popcorn in the microwave. Hey, you sitting there, you hear it sizzling, you hear it going around, and you start hearing the little flashes, and now the bag's getting full and getting ready to explode. So this seems like that's what this Tennessee team is right now.
And go ahead, Sean. You go ahead.
No, they're definitely gonna be they're definitely gonna be a problem. You talk about recruiting when you have a quarterback like Nico that's as young as he is and is doing the things that he's doing. Recruiting receivers is not gonna be a problem for Josh Heupel. You know what I'm saying? He can go to the top of the list in high school or the transfer portal and say, hey, why not Tennessee? And it make perfect sense to every single recruit, wide receiver recruit or tight end recruit, even offensive line, recruit. Hey, I need the best to protect the best. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna be fun. The next 3 years is gonna be a lot of fun in Knoxville. And listen, I'm a Bama guy. I don't necessarily I don't like that, but it's just the truth, and I can't deny it after what I saw this past weekend, like yesterday. I can't deny it.
It's interesting though, because Tennessee's like that little brother that as Bama fans, we just hate it. We don't, we always whoop their ass. So it's like we hate it, we hate it, we hate them. We really don't like them, but we like them because we can whoop them. Now they're getting successful. You kind of like, I don't mind seeing them win. I don't mind seeing them win. Tennessee can win a couple because we had a new regime. If Nick Saban was still our coach, I wouldn't want to see Tennessee win that just because of his record versus Tennessee. But now that the regime's new, I wouldn't mind seeing a couple other teams win here and there. But I think the thing that's going to be interesting to pick on your point when it comes to recruiting for Tennessee is the change in recruiting for college football when it comes to quarterbacks. I think it's going to be so interesting to watch how recruiting is going to go because I think Texas is in a situation where they got two of them that work so well. But if that was a lot of the other different schools, I don't think it would work that well. So can Tennessee bring in a big time quarterback to be behind Nico, pay him a lot of NIL money, and convince him to really stay? That's my biggest question for recruits nowadays. That's my biggest question because it seems like Arch Manning, it's people are wanting to see him.
Hmm.
How are we going to continue to sit this guy? We know what Quinn Ewers is. People are out there saying that he should be starting over Quinn Ewers. And
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, can he start in that type of system? Yes, he can. Is he talented enough? Yes, he is. But it's the pressure of having a high caliber person sitting behind you.
Hmm.
That's also one injury away from changing a lot of this stuff going on. So I think, man, Tennessee is in a prime position. Recruiting, like I said, for a lot of positions is going to be easy. But I'm almost on the border of saying I really wouldn't be so aggressive at recruiting big time quarterbacks just yet until I figure out how long Nico's really going to be here.
Hmm.
Because you get they can go out and get literally a top five quarterback in the recruiting class. They've already done it with
Yeah.
Nico, so they can do it. But I don't want to bring one in next year where you got to sit behind Nico for almost what 2 years,
Yeah.
And you're losing.
right? And you lose them. I mean, they can re up and get another one, but it's just a slippery slope when you think about how recruiting is going to turn out. And then one thing I do want to say about your point that you made about defense, I think Hypo has gotten to a position where it's almost more what you said on defense, that he's got those specific players that he can plug into the right position to where they can make timely plays. That's my thing. I think Oklahoma's offense was horrible. I can't give defense too much crazy credit, but I did see him make certain plays that I'm like, if they make this play against Georgia, if they make this play against Texas, if they make this play against Bama, that could really be a game changer or a heart stopping moment for a lot of fans out there. So I think their defense is just like their offense, prime for big time plays. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah. All right. So hey, let's pivot off into another game that I think all of us were vaguely surprised by. And it's this Mizzou and Vandy game. Hey, is Vandy awake now? Is Vandy in the SEC? Is Vandy here? Are they here? Because we've been talking about Vandy for years. They the bottom of the barrel. They just happy to be here. Vandy's that person that you invite to the party. They don't talk to nobody. They in the room. They don't care that they're not talking about nobody. They just happy to be there. Hey, we in the SEC. We happy to be here. And so now it's at the point now where Vandy's starting to, you got some heads turning. They started off the season 2-0, albeit versus a Virginia Tech. You went to overtime and beat them, and then Alcorn State, you beat them 55-0. You don't turn heads, so you're supposed to do that to them. You lose to Georgia State, and everybody's like, all right, they came back to earth. They back. And then you go on the road and you take on a top 10 Missouri team and take them to double overtime and uh almost pull it out. If you weren't in the part where you missing that kick to tie it up to send it to another overtime, you was right there. But who's this have more to say about? Is it more to talk about Mizzou, or is it more to say about, hey, Vandy's kind of coming up and now you're starting to see the little flashes take place of what they could be? Clark Lee seems like he's putting together a pretty good little squad in up there in Nashville.
Yeah. I think this one's interesting. I think two things are true when you ask that question, man. I think this can be about Mizzou sleeping on Vandy, and it can also be about Vandy not being the person you can pick on no more. To me, it's a weird analogy I want to place in for Vandy real quick. You know what? When you drink and you get liquid courage, right? And there's always that one person around you that you just know how to pick on, right? I can go to him because he's the person to pick on because he ain't gonna do nothing back. Then randomly that person starts hitting the gym. They're tired of people talking about him like that. He gets kind of a little bit bigger, a little bit buffer, and you can still whoop his ass. But you can't say it as slick as you said before in the past. That's what Vandy is. I really want to put this in picture. Vandy's the team that is starting to understand that, hey, we can be in the fight. We might not win the fight, but we got enough to be in the fight, which when it comes to certain games like it was yesterday, you might be in position to make primetime plays. Now, I think Sean said it in a text message, but I'm going to let him speak on it. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
there yet. But man, I can see them boys coming. I can see them coming, man. I can see them being a team that can really make a couple upsets in a year and that be exciting for them starting off. They got to be able to do it. So with their schedule, they're not going to in the SEC. They're not going to be able to contend with big time teams.
Mm-hmm.
Question for Vandy, which I think is a national championship worthy conversation, Van, is can they become a middle of the pack SEC team?
Can they join the middle?
Can they join it? Now, for Missouri, I'm
You
really confused on what Missouri is. I'm really confused on. We hear so many names, we hear what they should be, but it just they always seem to trip over their own shoelace when it comes to getting over the top. And I'm not putting too much on this game versus Vandy. They got out of it. I think, which is more like you said, Sean, more on Vandy. They couldn't win it rather than Mizzou winning it over Vandy. I think that they got out of this game, which is great. But I think for the future versus bigger and tougher opponents, you really got to have a lot of question marks from Mizzou. Really do.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt, we're gonna. I hate to say this, but we're gonna find out who Vanderbilt really is based on what happens in the Alabama Georgia game. Because Vandy got Bama next. Um, and if Bama loses to Georgia, they're gonna get slaughtered. Okay. If Bama beats Georgia, they got a chance to keep it close. Okay. To the point in the room, I think Vandy is being coached better than they have been since James Franklin. Vanderbilt proved with James Franklin, let me get there for a second, that they can win. You know what I'm saying? And you can actually get decent recruits at Vanderbilt, even with the academic situation they got going on over there. You can get players to come into Vanderbilt. Nashville is not a chump town. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Vanderbilt, the campus is very, very nice. It's right downtown. I mean, it's, if you go to Vanderbilt, you in the mix with a lot of stuff that happens in Nashville. There is a draw to go to Vanderbilt, even outside of the academia. But you got to have the right coach. You got to have some sustainability, but you got to have some wins. And I think this game against Missouri, even though they lost the game, I think it was a bigger win for Vanderbilt, even, in a loss. I think it was still a bigger win for them. I do think Missouri is a little overhyped. They do have a good quarterback. I'm not going to call him elite, but he's a really good quarterback. They got a couple receivers. And they coach well too. Why Missouri was ranked in the top 10, I don't know. Right? They should never have been there. Top 25, yeah, I'll give them that. But they should have never been 6 or 7 or wherever they were, because it was just too much for Mizzou. Now, Mizzou, I think that Vanderbilt needs to pursue the path that Mizzou is still currently on. Ever since Mizzou came into the conference, they went to what, 2 back-to-back SEC championships. They lost one to Bama, lost one to Auburn. They were never going to win those games, but they were there out of the East. Mizzou has been there. They have kind of, in a weird kind of way, earned their way into being, upper tier SEC, meaning I'm above Kentucky, but I'm not Georgia. You know what I'm saying? They earned that, and I'm going to give Mizzou that. The fan base is great. They're expanding the stadium. They've got resources. They're doing everything you need to do to be relevant inside of a conference. But to be ranked number 6 or 7 or wherever it was going into this game, I think that was just a little too high. I like both teams. I like both coaching staffs. I like what's going on. Vanderbilt, I joked that they had 12 fans a couple weeks ago. I think they may have picked up 2 or 3 more. I'm going to give them 15 here with the expansion of the stadium and the end zones or whatever the case may be. They're doing the stuff that they need to do to stay relevant in a very, very difficult conference. Um, you know, but I was really rooting for Vanderbilt to win that game. It just didn't have the horses to do it at the end. But at the end of the day, I think Missouri was a little overhyped.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think Vanderbilt was probably a little underhyped. But again, whatever happened to Bama this week is going to determine the rest of Vanderbilt's year, if you ask me. And I hate it because you never want to have something out of your control be in control. But again, if Bama loses to Georgia, Vanderbilt's gonna get slaughtered 55-0. And then they're gonna just probably go and fall back into the thing that we know Vanderbilt to be with all they 12 fans then. But
Yeah.
it was a great game. My eyes were glued to it the whole time. When they went to overtime, I could not leave the game. I could have hit back to go to another game that was on TV. I watched that entire game. And for that to be said, I don't know if I've ever watched an entire Vanderbilt football game in my life. And they did it for me this weekend. So let's go Commodores anchor down. Is that
I
it?
think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
You educating me.
Right.
Hey,
I
but
think the Vandy
but
fans
real,
somewhere out there to really come help us out. Really, we're gonna start talking about y'all more. So we really need somebody to come help
yeah,
us out
yeah,
with y'all lingo. But Sean, I think you hit everything so on the point when it comes to Vandy. But I think when it comes to like what's gonna make or break their season, I think they gotta be able to beat the teams like Kentucky, the teams like those, I mean, the middle of the pack to the lower SEC teams. I think if they consistently get those wins, then there will be really be a talking point. But I think one thing that the key to all of this for Vandy is coaching staff has gotten better. Yeah, the stadium has been enhanced. We got 12 more fans. We're doing a little bit better, but we got a playmaker at quarterback. We really got a playmaker who's a dual threat, and I think that's the type of guy that a team like this needs, that they can rally behind. That's a tough guy quarterback. He reminds me like a more like elusive Baker Mayfield, like that guy you think you just run through a wall behind, and that's who that quarterback is. And he knows how to make plays. He knows how not to turn the ball over. I think when it came to that game, I think late in that overtime, it just was play calling to me that just wasn't putting them in a position to be successful. So that's what I mean by when I say they didn't have enough to get across the finish line. You got to know what to do in those type of moments because you got
mhm,
the other team on their heels. They got a couple big plays, got them down where they could really score a touchdown, but couldn't do it and and they had to settle for a field goal that was ultimately missed, which is why they lost. I watched everything since the fourth quarter when it comes to that game. I was really trying to flip back and forth between few games, but I watched the game for the fourth quarter, and I just think Vandy, they're on the cusp of becoming relevant.
yeah,
That's a great standpoint. Mizzou, y'all were overhyped. We're not even gonna say maybe. Y'all ranked number 7 in the country at the time of this game. I almost can name 7 teams I will put ahead of Mizzou. So it's almost like it's not comparable. So it's really what I think they were overhyped, but they got an interesting schedule coming up for them and maximizing the rest of their season. Because I think they still can be a 2 loss team.
hmm
But we gotta wake up. We gotta be ready
yeah.
for the games.
Yeah, and the same for what it's worth, Vandy really did take Mizzou's best punch. And it's you let Brady Cook throw for over 200 passing yards. They got a running back who ran the ball 24 times for 199 yards in this game. You survived every bit of Luther Burden still had 2 touchdowns, which he normally does against any opponent. You took their hardest punch and you stood there at the end of the day. But just like you were saying, Drew, their quarterback Diego, the guy is he's the spark you needed for a team like Vandy. You need a guy that's gonna be like, hey, let's go fight, let's go fight, let's go fight, and that's what he is. If he threw for what 170, almost 180 passing yards, but he led the
Yeah.
team also in rushing on Saturday. So you need a guy that's going to go out there and kind of make plays and kind of head the charge for that. But Vandy, hey, enjoy what you can this year. You got a tough schedule, so you got to take your wins where you can get them. Like, hey, we were in this fight, we were in this fight, we were in this fight, and like you said, Drew, they got to join that middle of the pack of the SEC where all of these guys, it's like a revolving door between Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee is kind of etched away. A&M. Can you get into that field of teams consistently. Don't have this happen one year and then all of a sudden now, hey, I'm dropped back, or you let other teams come poach your guys for NIL deals, and now you back to ground zero recruiting again to have to build this team again. When it comes to Mizzou, though, Mizzou is like I think you said at the beginning of the season, Drew, when we did our first podcast for this season, that Mizzou kind of does this every year. They fool everybody at the beginning of the year where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're a super team, we're dominant," and everybody started to take the bait. They had their great year last year, and it seems like that's what everybody wants to remember this team as that two-loss team for last year. But this is kind of the roller coaster that Mizzou has always been on, time and time again here in the SEC. Sean, you mentioned it, where they went to the back-to-back SEC title games, and then after that, they fell back to the wasteland, kind of got forgotten about a little bit, and now they're on their way back up again. Um, but it is eye raising that Boston College came to your stadium. You were losing that game. You had to fight to kind of get back into it in the second half and go win it last week. Same thing with Vandy this week. How will you look next week? And we'll get into it on our prediction podcast. How will you look going into that in 2 weeks, going into A&M and into College Station to try to go win a game there, your first true road game of the season? You've had every game this season at home. You have not been on the road once this year. So that's a big thing, especially when it comes to SEC ball.
Yeah, I think really when you think of Mizzou, I think, man, for anybody else, let me just put it at this point. For anybody else that's not in the SEC, Mizzou would be a great team, the truthful. Because you're successful against teams that you really know you can beat. You're successful in that avenue, but when you get against the top juggernauts, you're not who we really think you are. And I think that's really what you think of when you think of Mizzou. They can really beat some of these small teams. Even when you think about Vandy, yeah, we can have a couple nail-biter games throughout our season, but if we was in the Big Ten or ACC, we would really be a 10-win team. We'll really be a conference champion team. We'll really be a playoff champion. I mean, a playoff tier team. So I think when you think about the SEC, Mizzou has to figure out how can we get the pieces that we need in the right place where we can really transition. There's going to be levels of transitioning. Can they transition to what Tennessee is transitioning to? Situational football with a playmaker who knows how to win big games. Cook, as a quarterback, Brady Cook is a great quarterback. But I don't think he's the quarterback that's going to excel in moments where we need you to either make us or break us. I don't think he's that guy yet. So I think you look at a team that, yes, they're better. They know how to recruit. They can be a 4-star caliber team. They can really contend against certain teams. But to put a whole season together, they're not a team that's going to be able to do it year in and year out. So I think, yes, they are a great middle of the pack SEC team. I think, yes, they can get above average, but they're not there yet, which is why I feel like we have to taper our expectations from Missouri and say, yeah, they're great. They look great. Can they produce NFL talent? Yes. But they're not ready to win big time football yet. That's not a hate on them. Mute.
Definitely not. And I'm going to applaud Missouri here real quick before we close out this section here. When Missouri, I'm gonna go back, when Missouri was being talked about becoming a member of the Southeastern Conference, A&M made all the sense in the world. When Missouri came up, I'm like, why Missouri? Like, I get it. It's you got Kansas City market television. I'm thinking, this is of course it's a money grab. You're not gonna go and grab a team that's sitting right next to another team that's already in your conference. We had to expand a little bit. But Missouri, they bring an academic acumen to the conference. They are continuing to show that they are not going to be irrelevant in this conference. So I'm applauding Missouri's leadership. They're forward thinking. They came into this conference and they came in swinging. They haven't stopped swinging. And I don't think they are going to stop swinging. They are about to, in my mind, leave the likes of the Kentuckys and the A&Ms. They got to do it on the field, but they're inching their way up slowly but surely. And I think I'm gonna still consider Missouri a new member of this conference, just like A&M. Missouri is absolutely more accomplished in football than A&M is or has been so far in this conference. And when these two teams were selected to join this prestigious conference, everybody thought it was going to be A&M that was going to excel. But I'll be the first one to say it right now, Missouri, you have blown the doors off of what A&M's been able to do from a consistency perspective. Um, take Johnny Manziel out of A&M's history, they haven't done anything. You know what I'm saying? So I know it's not about A&M, but it's more about Missouri. But I'm just applauding Missouri for what they've done since they've been here, and I don't see them slowing down. They're not speeding up, but I don't see them slowing down either. So, I'm kind of digging what they got going on.
Yeah. Well, we can hit on let's hit on one more game. What is there another game y'all want to talk about? Or is the Colorado big game Saturday night that happened, and at the same time you got, another top 20 matchup between USC and Michigan that took place this weekend also. Would either one of those games y'all want to hit on before we get out of here?
I think it depends on whether or not we want to stir Colorado fans up or not. You know what I'm saying? We could talk about the Michigan USC game. It was a good game. It was a good game. Like I said, but the Colorado game was probably more of a talking point, I guess, if you will. We talked about it before we jumped on. It's like, I think that they just get really hyped to win games. They just beat Baylor. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they make a lot of noise for a little bit of results. And if let's say if Missouri had to beat Baylor last night, would it have been all that? No, it wouldn't have been all that. I'm trying to figure out what it is Deion's trying to accomplish at Colorado. I'm trying to figure out whether or not he's trying to get Travis Hunter, Shiloh, and Shador to the league, and he's gonna dip. I don't. Nobody knows what's going on there. Now, was the game exciting? It was. It was a very exciting game to watch. The pageantry was there. Everything was there that you want to see in a college football game. But I still think Colorado is who they are, which is not even barely an average team. They got some good talent on the top end, but it's I still see 4 wins when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Sean. I think they actually will. Well, I think they will end the season with more wins than 4. But I think I'm really confused on what's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I don't hear much talk about that. I know the questions that are coming towards them aren't really talking about what's the goal of Colorado's season, what makes up a winning season. But to me, Colorado, we understand that we're not ready for big time football yet. If you don't understand it as a Colorado fan, I think that you're delusional. Straight up and point blank period. I'm gonna just say delusional Colorado fan that thinks this team can contend with the top 5 teams in the country. We're not there. So I think we understand that the goal has to just be a successful winning season, a bowl win, and get players to the league. Now, will Deion buy into that for 5 more years to come with Colorado? I don't see that. But for right now, I think we're in a solid place for Colorado fans that say, hey, we're on a tier where we can be happy with winning football. And I think when you think about what Deion Sanders has accomplished, it's like I don't think really people are hating on Colorado. I just think you have to understand what your expectations are.
You can't
We
be
knew
real.
what team you came to. You knew we know you came to a 1-win team. So to me, anything above 1 win is something he can brag about, which is okay, great. But when you think about the totality of what the team is going to accomplish, the trajectory of the season, I don't think they're really even the middle of the pack college football team in the country. I really would put them on the lower half of stuff. I think because you have 2 extraordinary talents, that's the only reason that you're really in these games. I don't think it's much scheme-wise, offense or defense. I don't think there's much really true playmaking outside of those two guys that you can consistently count on game in and game out. If I knew for a fact every single game my quarterback's gonna throw for close to 300 yards, I'll be pretty happy with that. If I knew I got a dual threat, when I'm talking about dual threat, the offense and the defensive side of player that's dominant, that's elite, man, there'll be a lot of plays that can be made to keep me inside of games. Now, winning these is huge, and a Hail Mary does not impress me. The stuff he did in overtime was more impressive than the game throwing touchdown to me. I'm not trying to hate on Colorado, but to me, when I think of the expectations of them, you really can't say much because of what they were before Deion got there, which is not a great point to say. But I'm being optimistic about them tonight. Great win for the Buffs. Let's continue Let's continue forward. Let's see what we can do in our conference. I don't know what conference they're in. But Deion puts entertaining football on the TV screen, which is exactly why they brought him in. So
Yeah, hey, you got to earn some money. The thing with Colorado is just, I still think even we're a quarter into the season already, and I feel like there's still so many questions around this team, and especially more so with Dion. It's like, yeah, Drew, like you were saying, if you can pass for 300 yards, they're top 5 in passing yards in the nation right now. But you look at their run offense, they're 130th, right? They can't run the ball. They both lines in the trenches are not that good. This is not a very good put together football team outside of your extreme playmakers. And my thing is, you don't really hear about them on the recruiting trail like that. So you're not really recruiting big talent to come in and replace these guys once they get ready to leave after this season. And then in the same breath, it's like, are you trying to model what you're doing after what Florida State is doing? And we're seeing in live action right now the downfall of that. If you roll wrong in the transfer portal, what happens to your team with that? We're seeing what happens when you roll wrong on a quarterback or a running back or wide receivers and whatnot in the portal. What happens to your team when you fail in that aspect? And it's like, what happens if Dion does? First off, the biggest question is, does Dion stay after this year? And in the same breath, if he does stay, how long are they going to keep him around if this thing really does go south next year with him at the helm and you don't got these dynamic playmakers on your team still? And it's going to be really interesting to see how he handles this team now, because you've got other teams that are looking at him, and you've got an SEC job that's getting ready to open up in Florida. Florida ain't making another couple of weeks. Everybody's saying, oh, because they won this game against Mississippi State, like, oh, they straight. People forget Jimbo got fired last season after he blew out Mississippi State by 40 points, and the following Monday he was gone. So I don't want to hear when people want you gone, like they are saying down there in Gainesville that they want you out of there. You gonna be out of there. So what do these? But the thing is, do these universities look at Dion as somebody that's like, hey, we want to bring him in, or what is he putting on field to be an example of why you should bring him in? What is he doing to prove that point to these other schools to say, hey, we warrant you to come here and be in charge of this giant fan base, this giant university, this giant program, like a Florida, like a big time school. Because Colorado, they felt lucky to have Dion. Because where was Colorado at before Dion got there? They won one game that season, and it's been everybody told Dion to be the first one to tell you before I got here. We only won one. They only won one game, and so on and so forth. A lot of eyes are on Colorado from those two aspects. How are you carrying that program? What are you going to do next? And if we're looking for another head coach at my university, do we take the chance on you?
Let me say this real quick. You made a comment. You said SEC teams that have openings coming up. Now I'm kind of moving off a little bit. It's not gonna be Dion. I'm gonna make a mad proclamation right now. Florida's gonna fire Billy Napier, and Lane Kiffin's gonna become the head coach at Florida. Okay. Lane Kiffin's smart enough to know he can get Ole Miss into the playoff with the expanded playoff. He can get them in the top 10 where they are right now, where he always sits, where he lays. He can't win that championship at Ole Miss. That is not going to happen. I'll say that right. I bet 2 paychecks that Lane Kiffin will never win a national championship at Ole Miss. He just can't. It's Ole Miss. He can't do it. Florida, he can. Dion needs to tread very, very carefully here. I think Deion needs to have a season or two in Colorado without Shador, Travis, and Shiloh and still remain middle of the pack, showing some sort of trajectory upwards as a coach or coaching staff, whatever case may be. If he doesn't, if he leaves, I don't know. I don't know who would hire him right now. Um, it doesn't even make any sense to hire him right now. Colorado is where he's at, is where he needs to be right now. If he wants to continue to be a college coach, the best thing he's got going for him right now is Colorado's cutting the check. He needs to stay there and be the best thing Colorado's had, what, I don't know, in the past 10 or so years or whatever. But he needs to stay. Otherwise, he's going to be facing some reputational issues, some selfishness issues, everything everyone's talking about. I'm following my son, making sure my sons get to the league, whatever, whatever. You know, People are going to feel robbed if he takes off after this year. He's got to stay in Colorado. But Napier's gone. Lane Kiffin will be the head coach at Florida.
Yeah, so there's so much to unpack here when it comes to this right here. Man, I think I'm actually on the opposite side of you with this, Sean. I think he has to go to the SEC. Now, but it's such a weird comment to say about Dion because I don't know what he really wants to do in his heart. If he wants to be this long time coach, now I know he has. Not saying this is why he wouldn't, but I know he has certain health issues to make it tougher for him to coach. Now, if he ever gets to a point where that's not what I want to do anymore, I think he needs to stay at Buffalo until it's time to retire. But I think if he wants to still become this great college coach, he's got to take a quick jump to the SEC when the moment's right, which I think if Florida comes open, the moment will be right. You said why would teams or what team would hire Dion right now? A desperate ass team. A desperate ass Florida Gators team who has the history of excellence that we just want somebody that's going to bring success here. Now, I'm not saying Dion is success, but what success looks like is what was that place like before you got there, and what was it like after you left? Colorado is such a fantastic talking point. And I got to leave with my son's leave because after this season, we're not going to be a talking point like that. Now, I don't know. They could get top recruits, but I'm not trying to say they can't, but I just don't see it happening. Now, if we go to Florida, listen to my system of success. If we go to Florida like it is right now, do y'all think Dion can make Florida a little bit better or a little bit more attractive than what they are right now?
Attractive, yes.
So for a team that's desperate, we're going to buy into success for his at least, what's that's going to last? 3 years? 2 years? There's at least 2 years. I'll give him 2 years because they're going to say he got to get his recruiting class in Florida. He dealing with old stuff. He'll get 2 years at Florida, and they'll still be hyping Dion up. But I think just because of what he's done at Colorado, he would be a prime position to set up a successful team in Florida. My question really for Dion is, do you have the personnel and the schemes to win football games consistently without talent, without the two players you got right now? That's my big question for him. But this conversation is truly, truly fascinating. We're gonna have this conversation a lot over the course of this season because Florida's, I think, going to suck for the rest of the year. And I think Colorado's going to be a question mark for the rest of the year just because whatever they do, I think we're not really going to be impressed or disappointed by it. I think whatever they do is just whatever Colorado does. But I think we have talking points around those two teams and where certain places he could skip away to get to is going to be very, very fascinating. Very, very fascinating. I think it's going to be a lot going on. One other couple things I do want to make points of. Lane Kiffin going to Florida will be such a Lane Kiffin move. It'll be such a Lane Kiffin move. But I think Sean, he's gonna have too much success at Ole Miss just to pick up and walk away. I think he's gonna get caught into a SEC coaching trap. Where the SEC coaches get to a good school, they get close enough to the top where they think, next year I'm gonna get it. Next year I'm gonna get it. Next year I'm gonna get it. And I think he's gonna fall into that trap when it comes to Ole Miss. But if I do see him jump ship, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm gonna say that's Lane Kiffin. He's gonna jump ship. If I see Lane Kiffin with Florida, man, give them 5 years. I think they're going to be dangerous. They'll be back to the national championship type of caliber teams. I think that'll be great. But another coach, speaking of coaches leaving and coaches getting fired and coaches on a hot seat, LSU, Brian Kelly. I think his seat is getting hot. I think his seat is getting hot. I like what they did yesterday against UCLA, but man, this is what, year 3 for Brian Kelly or year 4?
It's
Year three,
three. Yeah,
three
it's
for
three.
Brian Kelly. Man, LSU, y'all gotta have a top tier season this year. If y'all don't, I think Brian Kelly's gonna be on the hot seat. I think not. I think next year is gonna be a year he gets fired. But I think if they don't come out on top this year, like they need to come out on top, and let Texas come in here and just automatically start out better than them in the SEC, I think that's gonna speak a lot. Because I think Brian Kelly has a lot of talent at LSU right now, and I do not think he's meeting the expectations of what they're supposed to be doing. I'm even shocked I'm saying this. I actually like their quarterback, Sean. I think he's a top tier guy. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the country, but I don't think he's being led how they need to be led. There's a lot of dumb decisions I see LSU make. And if I see Lane Kiffin with LSU, I'd be scared of that team every time I run across him. But there's some reason why I'm like, when Brian Kelly's on the field coaching, I'm like, I know he's gonna make some type of mistake or he can be in this game. You telling me UCLA, this is not against y'all. You mean to tell me for the first part of this game, we really not dominating UCLA? I haven't heard anybody talk about UCLA since Lonzo Ball was there. And I thought that we really didn't put up a good showing when it comes to what we did this week against that caliber team. So I'm like, we got a tough end of the year schedule for LSU. I'm not saying it right now, but in about 5 weeks from now, what their schedule's gonna look like, their record's gonna look like, I think Brian Kelly's gonna be on the hot seat. It's one of my couple hot takes to end this podcast tonight. But man, a lot of coaching changes gonna happen over the course of the year. Deion Sanders, Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly. I have to say top 3 that we gotta watch this year.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Y'all know Brian Kelly is my guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big Brian Kelly fan, but every time I turn the TV on and watch one of his games at LSU, I scratch in my head. He's being outcoached by a lot of teams in the SEC, a lot of coaches in the SEC right now. You know what I'm saying?
Not just SEC.
Right, yeah, and LSU should be held in the highest regard in the country in regards to programs, not the SEC, but in the country. You should name LSU in the top 5 of every discussion. Currently, they're not there, and it is because of Brian Kelly. He needs to wake up and figure out, how to get it done. I don't necessarily know if it's the fact that he did what he did at Notre Dame, because me and Harrison, we talk about Notre Dame all the time. He's like, Dad, why is Notre Dame always ranked? So, well, because it's Notre Dame. It's not a good answer, but that's the best answer I can give. It's just because they're Notre Dame. You know what I'm saying? They don't belong to a conference. They pick and choose where they want to play. Now they got an ACC schedule. You know what I'm saying? It's actually easier. Brian Kelly probably should have stayed at Notre Dame.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he's here now. He's here now, and he wanted to compete against Saban and the big dogs, and here we are. But I agree with you 1,000%. If he don't get it done here real soon, LSU is going to get him out, and the coaching carousel it could get really interesting here real soon.
No, it's going to be very interesting real soon. But I think we think about LSU real quick before you go, Van, about LSU. I think not that they are bad. It's just like you said, Sean, they should be top 5, no doubt. They should be like the Georgia, Bama, LSU, and the SEC. It should be those 3 teams easy. And I think that with the coaching carousel that we're about to start seeing for the next couple of years with conference realignment happening, there's a lot of things that's going to settle in the grass by the end of these next 2 years. I think there's going to be openings of position, or there's going to be organizations or ADs that are going to say, hey, we need to make a move now because we're going to get left behind. Talking about Deion leaving Colorado. Imagine Deion at LSU with LSU's demeanor and the type of people that come through LSU. LSU has no issue letting people be themselves, and I love that about LSU. But Deion, man, I can see Deion prime time at LSU, and that would be a scary, scary thought. And I think LSU would welcome that with open arms. I think they would boot Brian Kelly out the office today if Deion Sanders came available where they can bring him to their school, just because of the talent level that they're going to have Still, my that's gonna be coaching. I think coaching wise for Deion is one why he does not get a lot of these jobs. But I think that LSU is an interesting team when you think about this season because what I mean by that is if they can't win the big games that they got to win this season, what are we gonna do? The question then is, I think it's gonna be not talent wise because you got great talent. I think it's gonna be, do we have the coach that's gonna get us over the top? And if we can't do it this year, I don't see it happening. Teams only gonna get better after this year. That's
Yeah.
why I said I don't think he's gonna get fired this year, but I can see next year it not happening again, and they'd be like, "We went through 4 years of this. We're not gonna be at Texas A&M getting stuck with Jimbo Fisher. We're gonna move on while we got opportunity to, while we're in a transition period, and take it over." So LSU's interesting. They better handle their business. Better handle their business.
Yep. Yep. Well, I hear you. Well, hey, thank you everybody for tuning in. You'll get our regularly game predictions, big game stuff coming out this week. We're back on the road. Get everything down. Also, look out for, I think we discussed this. We're gonna do a sights and sounds video from any games that we go to this season. A couple of just recorded environments, get to a couple of stadiums and whatnot. That you'll get that type of behind the scenes type of footage also, hey, from us. So hey, appreciate y'all dropping in. And we'll see y'all this week.